Ciao, hi, hey guys, I'm just checking I'm live on Facebook as well. Just waiting on Facebook. Come on, Facebook. Come on. Come on, Facebook. Please don't let me down. I might have to go back and redo Facebook because I don't know if it's loading properly. Having some technical issues. Sorry about this, guys. Not sure what's going on with Facebook at the moment. It sometimes does this anyway. Come on, Facebook. Ciao, hi, hey guys. Sorry, having some technical issues there with Facebook. I had uploaded on YouTube already, but anyway, I'm focusing on the YouTube screen. So if anyone messages me or comments or posts on Facebook, I won't be able to see it until after the video. So anyone on Facebook, please forgive me if I'm not able to reply to any of your comments. But as per usual, this is one of my list videos. If you want me to put a shout out for you on my next video or anyone my next videos, please let me know, and please comment anything else you like on the comments. Yeah, I had some technical issues, I'll say, with Facebook, so sorry, the YouTube version is probably going to be a bit longer than planned, even more than usual. But anyway, went to watch the game at the pub with my dad. Unfortunately, my dad was not able to make it today, which is regrettable. But I was going to go through the game, but I think I'll do that in point number 21, like 21 again, recap the game. But yeah, 2-2 draw, which is a bit disappointing because, well, very disappointing. Could be the first time, I was going to say non-Scottish team, a non-Old Firm or whatever you want to call it team, a non-Glaswegian team, or could win the league. I think Hearts or odds on. I hope they fall apart, but it's not looking likely. So as long as I suppose as long as it's them instead of rankers, as I call them. But I do feel like rankers get more investment and things like that. But yeah, I'll go through a review of the game in part 3, all being well. Touch wood, God willing, and Godspeed, as they say, and all that kind of stuff. But I'll try and remember the things I was going to say. This tea could have been a bit sweeter. Anyway, I'll try and get to the point. Yeah, these are pointers number 11 to 20. So here goes. So number 11. I was going to say this in the intro, but I thought, wait, I'd say it in point number 11. Is and initially, I think at one point on the 17th, I was going to talk about my dreams and like my ideal dream version for January, like what I would love to happen in January. But then I guess then I was going to do that on the 25th because I didn't get around to it on the 17th for whatever reason. It took me a while to make the decision, and then for whatever reason, I didn't manage to get around to that. So I was going to do it on the 25th, but then I forgot, I think, and then I decided to do the Celtic sort of thing instead. Celtic were playing today as well, and I thought, well, Celtic were playing Hearts. It'd be cool if we could break Hearts. To be honest with you, I'd love for Celtic and Man United to have won today just because they were playing Arsenal, which is my second least favourite team. But most importantly, I think even if like Celtic won and Arsenal won, I'd be happy with that, as long as Celtic won. But I thought the song "A Beautiful Sunday," it would be definitely a beautiful Sunday if Celtic. Yeah, it wasn't to be. But yeah, I would talk about because it's the 25th as well. Ideally, in hindsight, I would have talked about when I was walking to the pub, and I went for a walk, which was about 4 miles or so. I think I thought I could have talked in hindsight about like I suppose because it's a month since Christmas, I could have talked about my ideal January So that could have, should have, would have to say. Yeah, because I think last week was the 17th, so I was thinking I would talk about my imaginations and my imaginations of deal month. But anyway, so I'd love to see as much investment into Townfall and Celtic as possible, as long as it's legal. One thing I was thinking of for point number 11 is like, what if Celtic could be opened up to all possible investors, so all sorts of people could buy shares in the club, and maybe it already is, but I'm not sure about the ownership structure. I've got to admit, I'm not privy to the ownership structure, but I wonder if the club could be more available to different investors, so we could have the PIF, the Public Investment Fund, Qatar Sports Investments for Celtic, PIF for Celtic, Qatar, so Qatar to invest in Celtic, Dubai to invest in Celtic, and all sorts of different investors, Arabian investors, and all sorts of investors to invest in the club. So I think that would be pretty cool. I wonder if in the future, like, I think it's a bit unfair that Russia was banned from, sort of side note, but I think it was unfair that Russia was banned from all these like sporting events and assets were seized and all that kind of thing, and yet America is threatened to take over Greenland, and it's what other wars are involved in, like Iran and other situations. So I think it's a bit unfair. If it's going to be one rule, it should be applied to everyone. Similar with football, like I wouldn't want Celtic to get unfair decisions in our favour that are not within the rules. Honest referee mistakes is a different thing, I guess, but I'd like to think we don't get unfavourable decisions, and sometimes a referee makes a mistake and it might be in our favour and sometimes against us, but some believe that like the Rankers and Hearts get really good, get favourable decisions in their favour. But yeah, I'd love for the club to be open to all possible investors. As I said, kind of in point number 4, like discouraging from investing in wars and weapons trade, and instead encouraging to invest into Townfall and Trevoll Celtic, respectively. I guess, as I say, in hindsight, I would have talked about both Townfall and Celtic, and my dreams that they'll be acquired, like investments from all possible investors. But moving on, number 12, as I say, I'd love for it to be open to all possible investors, and given the club's charitable work, I'd love to see the club do even more to like tackle bullying and maybe look at tackling match fixing. I'd love for Townfall and Celtic to work with FIFA and UEFA, which I talked about, but also in terms of things like tackling match fixing, corruption, and things like that. I think it would be interesting if there was an investigation into the Rankers and Hearts, finding that they had unfavourable decisions. One decision in the game today that I saw, I thought the referee gave Hearts. I'm trying not to be too biased, but I could be wrong. And I mean, I suppose a neutral would have to say, but I felt he gave the Hearts quite a few decisions in their favour. But maybe that's just me and being a Celt and Celtic supporters. But I thought the sending off we had was really unfair. But I'd love to know from neutrals. I guess obviously Hearts supporters are probably going to almost all say that was a sending off, and Celtic supporters are probably going to say the opposite. And obviously our rivals like the Rankers are going to say it was a sending off. But it'll be interesting to find from neutrals what they think and whether that was a sending off or not. I can't think of much else to cover for point number 12, so I'm going to move on to point number 13 and obviously talk about like my fears I have, my selfish goals and dreams and ideals. But I think supporting Celtic is not that selfish, because they were like the victims of colonisation and that kind of thing going back in the history, but I won't go too much into that. But one of the things I was thinking about is like capitalising on our rivals' hatred for Catholics. Like they sing FTP, F the Pope, or they type or write FTP like in graffiti and that kind of thing, F the Pope and things like that. And they talk about I think one of the things they say is Pope on a robe, which I obviously say things about the Pope and things like that. And what some other things they say? Sorry, it's not working. They say things about no Pope of Rome and things like that, which is their choice, but they're very anti-Catholic songs, and they sing up to our knees in Fenian blood, which I don't know if that's just about the Irish or it's about Catholics and Irish Catholics Catholics generally, but I'm not sure about that one. But if I'm honest, I don't know too much about what the meaning of that is. But I know it's about like killing Catholics. Killing Irish people. I'm not sure if it's about Catholics as well. So I think the club. The reason why I mention that is I think the club should capitalise and get investment from Catholics as individuals and groups, organisations, churches themselves, Catholic churches, maybe even the Vatican itself, and Catholic organisations. So I think the club should capitalise on the hatred our rivals have for Catholics, and I don't think Celtic should hate anyone personally. I'm sure many Celtic supporters do hate like rankers, and Hearts fans, and whatever sports and whatnot, probably, or at least their clubs, on certain things like the royal family or things like that. And I don't agree with hate personally. So I talked about in part one. I don't think Celtic is perfect, but I think even when I decide to make this video, one of the main points I was thinking about is capitalising on the hatred our rivals have towards Catholics. Now, I'm not Catholic myself, but I do think the club should capitalise on that. That's something that the club could say to Catholic Church. I wonder if Catholic individuals and churches and whatnot, even with their tithing or whatnot, could give, like my favourite figure, 10% of whatever their tithes are, or things like that, whatever money they collect, towards like Celtic, helping the club to buy better players, develop its academies, pay debts off that it needs to pay off, or things like that, to get one up on like make up for the hatred. And I suppose some people might say don't be vengeful, but which I suppose it says in the Bible, to be honest. But a lot of people say Catholicism is like a fake breed of Christianity, which I kind of agree with. Although, so I support Celtic not as a Catholic, but as someone who's an anti-imperialist, which I've become to. But I still think the club could capitalise on that, on the links, even if a lot of our supporters, like myself, are not necessarily Catholic, but there are some who are. But just for the fact that our rivals hate Catholics. So I think they could use that again and capitalise on that, and say like get investment, even donations from and sponsorship from Catholics and that kind of thing. So getting funding from Catholics and organisations and whatnot. So yeah, utilising the hate of our rivals, turn it into a positive for us, that kind of thing. Number 14, also non-WASPs, people who are not white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Generally, I think we could see supporters. Now, I don't know how much, if they'd want to put money into the club or just buy the kits and merchandise, which I suppose would be putting money into the club, but they could even invest into, donate to, or sponsor the club. So I wonder if the club could build links on that. So I hope to talk more about anti-imperialism again, also in part 3, and possibly part 4 as well. But moving on, number 15, seeing all the possible sources of funding. And I often talk about like people with mental health problems, like having a method to the madness. We could probably see out of the box to see like, in spite of our challenges, we can see like, oh yeah, we could, like I said about the Catholic thing, or about all sorts of sources of funding. We could think things that quote unquote normal people might not have thought of. Similar with neurodivergent people. I'm very disappointed about the results today, and I'm a bit worried about this league, but hopefully in the future will continue to grow. I hope we can somehow, by some miracle, win this league. I was thinking that we should rest players in Europe, because if players get tired and like Hearts have an advantage, I was going to say I'd rather immaturely call them farts, because it rhymes with Hearts. I'm very immature. Hearts standing for Hearts of Midlothian, I think. Not really good at geography, but that's apparently an area in Edinburgh, so I'll call it. But it has 5 or 6 silent letters, so it's pronounced Edinburgh, of course, for those who don't know. But I would say I jokingly called it Edinburgh, but yeah, I mean Celtic normally say they're I think Celtic supporters would probably think they're the second most hated team amongst Celtic supporters, basically, because for want of a better way of putting it, because I guess people call them the diet hounds, as in what we call rankers and things like that. But yeah, look at all different ways. Like I was going to say, neurodivergent people could also think of different ways to come up with fundraising ideas, and maybe even invest into a club and or donate to it, even and sponsor it. I often think like donations are even stronger, because I suppose if you're invested into something, you have more of a commitment to it and want to see it do well. But then a donation to it is wanting nothing in return except for the club's success, more than likely. Moving on, I think that was number 15 and number 16. So yeah, look at all the possible different ways to attract investment, and what if the club could be co-owned by like wealthy people from Arab nations, wealthy Arabs, and other nations. I wonder if Russia, controversial one, but I wonder if Russia could be brought in from the wilderness and be able to invest in the club. Maybe some Celtic sports disagree with some of the ideas I cover, so I'd love to know that as well. Hopefully people won't be too harsh, but people might disagree with some of the things I say. I don't know if I should mention this, but I imagine, like, as Celtic normally supports Palestine, uh, some Celtic supporters are probably like, oh, we don't want to get too political in that sort of thing, or whatever. But I think, generally speaking, most Celtic supporters support Palestine. So I guess, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but that would probably make people who are pro-Israel support the opposition, but like the Rankers or whatever, or Hearts or whatever, more like the Rankers, if I'm honest, probably too honest, but unfortunately. But yeah, again, I probably shouldn't say that. But so there are some difficult issues with that one, like BlackRock, for instance. I don't know. As much as I would love to see their investment, I imagine many Celtic supporters would disagree. In fact, a lot of Celtic supporters, and I thought like questions to ask Celtic supporters, but a lot of Celtic supporters say we don't want wealthy owners because, as I said in part one, and as I've said in the past, they say it doesn't reflect the club's values. But then again, I think as long as they talk about 5 to 10 year plans connecting with the supporters, um, and doing stuff with the charitable work, the foundation, I don't think supporters should complain. And if supporters want continued success and trophies, as well as donations to the charity, to the foundation, and that kind of thing, and they like a lot of Celtic supporters want to do well in Europe, but I often say like saying that you can't have your cake and eat it. I think what's the point of having a cake if you can't eat it? But you can't have it both ways. Like, how do you do well in Europe, um, whilst also focusing on domestic games, and at the same time not getting those wealthy investors? So I'd love to know from different Celtic sports, and I'm sure the supporter base is split between, well, whether we should have wealthy owners, but I think some would be worried about like changes. But as long as I say, they say we're going to continue to help you to elevate, to have even more success, you're going to continue to have continued success and that kind of thing. I don't know why any supporter would be against that, but I'd love to know different opinions. Number 17, it would be hard to imagine, but especially in Scottish football, and I guess there is the challenge of like the weather and whether people will go to Scottish football, but if the pay's right, I'm sure they would. Just like England is fairly cold, so not quite as cold as Scotland, but it is still quite cold. People still come to England because of the pay. So with the right money and investment, I'm sure it could change. But it'd be interesting to imagine what I think it would anyway. And again, people might disagree with me on that one, but I think it'd be interesting to see what the club could achieve with that massive amount of investment into the club and into the infrastructure of the club, and that kind of thing. Like in Scotland, our rivals are not as good, so it'd be interesting to see if we had world class players coming to Scotland, what they could achieve in Scotland, and maybe scouts, but scout the next Messi or Ronaldo. That's pushing a bit, but yeah, with loads of investment. If I'm really dreaming, like sometimes I imagine like not only millions but even billions or even trillions. But I think I'm pushing it a bit, but maybe in the future trillions. I guess with AI and that kind of thing, and how much money is being made in the world nowadays. I mean, you hear about Elon Musk's pay package, it's supposed to be $1 trillion or something like by 2030 or something like that. Yeah, maybe in the future clubs will make trillions. I don't know. At one point, like, it would be hard to imagine clubs having billions. So I guess that's the way the world's heading, whether we like it or not. Some people obviously don't like it. Most people probably don't like it, but it is the way it is. I'm not sure what point I'm trying to make there, but yeah, if I'm really dreaming, and sometimes I like to dream a bit too much, but yeah, just like I say, like, what if there was a neurodivergent trillionaires network in the future, or a dyslexic trillionaires network in the future, and that kind of thing. But moving on, number 18, I hope the club will continue to do a lot of good for charity. As I say, with great power comes great responsibility. And again, I hope to turn that negative thing about the hatred for Catholics that our rivals have, so the club will capitalise on it. Some of my quirky ideas. I know I do have some strange and quirky out there ideas, but I thought I'd share them anyway, as usual. Number 19, I hope the club can do a lot to fundraise for supporting STEM software developers, programmers, software developers, coders, and whatnot across Africa and developing nations generally, especially across African countries. And hopefully that will encourage more people to support us. And one of the things I think about is like giving to charity. Hopefully more people find out about charitable giving, more they'll support us. And number 20, on that note, like each trophy we win, each prize, the prize money we win, most importantly, I'd say, I'd love for us to, I want to see the club win so many trophies, but the prize money, I'd love for us to. On that note, sorry to stop it twice long. I did have those technical issues in my defence, but anyway, peace and love, and I'm out.